Fen collapsed onto the bed in a heap of exhaustion. Their hair stuck to their face as they didn't bother to dry it off from their bath. Their exhaustion was bone deep, having been at a monster hunt not long ago that didn't end as cleanly as they wished, figuratively and literally. Soon after their collapse, the room's door opened, and the floorboards creaked underneath the weight of the new presence that had entered the room. Finn didn't move a muscle to greet the new arrival, nor did they make any indication that they heard the new presence to begin with. The person paused their actions and stared at the collapsed figure, with curiosity, but still didn't get any response out of the exhausted hunter. "You'd think you'd at least dry yourself off before heading off to bed." The person spoke. The familiar song-like tone of the bard Jaskier rang through the room in amusement, which was juxtaposed by Fenn's low, drained groan. They turned their head to the side to give Jaskier the decency of eye contact for this conversation and simply replied, "Too exhausted." Jaskier snorted. "I see that, but you don't plan on sleeping like that, do you?" Fenn stared blankly and did not react in the slightest. "God, if you're not going to die to a monster, you're going to die to sickness. Come on now." He strode across the room, looped his arm with Fenn's, and pulled his friend upright. The hunter allowed himself to be dragged limply. "You really were going to leave it this wet, huh? You really are a mess." Fenn involuntarily snorted at the comment. Jaskier paused. "Oi, I didn't mean it like that. Get your mind out of the gutter." The bard swatted his friend at the back of his head, which earned him another chuckle. Fenn covered their mouth to muffle their laughter. Jaskier shook his head and brought a towel from across the room and began to dry off Fenn's hair. "It's not that hard. You really should tend to yourself," the bard muttered, and Fenn hummed in response. A few minutes into Jaskier pats drying Fenn's hair, Fenn's eyes slowly fell shut, relaxing in their current situation, and leaving themselves at Jaskier's care. Having dried off Fenn's hair, Fenn opened their eyes, sensing the lack of presence behind them. They turned around and found that Jaskier was across the room, looking through his travel bag. "Are we done?" Fenn asked. "No, just looking for a brush." "You don't have to do that." "Well, are you going to do it yourself?" Jaskier raised a brow and Fenn looked away with no response. The bard huffed out amused and carried on with his search. "Yeah, that's what I thought. Just continue sitting there looking pretty." "You're good at that." Fenn smiled wide. "Am I?" Jaskier glanced at the hunter and shook his head once more, a smile creeping its way onto his lips. Finding what he was looking for, he stood in front of his friend, holding out the brush towards them as if it was one of their hunting knives, and asked once more, "Are you going to do it?" Fenn looked between the brush and Jaskier, thinking it through. It didn't take them long to come to a decision. "I'd prefer if you did it." Jaskier blinked, processing. He sighed and sat behind his friend. "You're hopeless." "Well, that's why I have you, right? And I thought I was around because I'm great company." "That too." Fenn fell into a trance, and Jaskier dragged the brush through their hair. Jaskier would occasionally detangle any hard knots with his fingers if need be, which is the only differing action, but Fenn didn't mind. Fenn was more focused on the close company than what was being done to their hair, that they didn't realize how far their mind wandered, and Jaskier was in a similar state. Though his hands were going through the motions of brushing through Fenn's hair, at some point, his mind had wandered off too. Trusting his hands to still be doing what they're meant to, he took comfort in the silence with his friend. The two sat in comfortable silence for a few more minutes, allowing each other to sit in each other's company. Fenn was dragged back to their mind momentarily, feeling Jaskier's hand still on their hair, and wondered, "How long have we been here?" "You've been at this for a while, Yaz. You sure you aren't pulling my hair at this point?" "That," snapped Jaskier back to himself. "What?" "My hair?" Fenn reached her hand out where Jaskier's hand was working. They grabbed the bard's hand. Their fingers grazed their own hair, and they paused their motion. "Jaskier? What?" "That, the bard looked at his work. That's a braid. I didn't realize I did that. I'll just... Findon let go of Jaskier's hand. Finn? It's fine, leave it in. Really, it's already there, so... And besides, I'm sure it's fine. Fen shrugged, letting go of the board. You haven't even seen it. Well, you're good at your hands, Bard. Can't be that bad. Plus, must be at the very least decent if you manage to do it while wandering off. Jaskier hummed with a smile. You're not wrong. It does look great. Nothing to be concerned about, then. Jaskier finished off the braid, faster now that he paid more attention to what he was doing. He brushed down any loose strands before standing up admiring his work. His eyes met Finn's and the bard's heart stuck to his throat. Finn's eyes were lidded, barely keeping themselves awake. Okay, you can head off to bed now. Jaskier placed his hand on his friend's shoulder, lightly pushing them down to their pillow. Wait, no, I haven't seen it yet. Fen half-heartedly swiped the hands away, but laid down on the bed regardless. Jaskier looked around the room for a mirror out in the open, then back at his friend. It'll take a minute to find a mirror, Fenley. Best you sleep. Then you can fully admire my handiwork in the morning. You know, after you're well rested. Fen wanted to argue, but their head was already placed on a pillow. Any fight they had in their system dissipated as they struggled to get their eyes open. I better find a mirror by my bedside in the morning, yes. The words trailed off at the end of the sentence, not having energy left in them to speak clearly. Jaskier smiled and promised his friend. He went over to the side of the room, grabbed his lute, the thing he was initially here for, and headed towards the door. He turned to his friend who lay at peace, and smiled. Jaskier headed down into the main part of the tavern to play for the rest of the night. The next morning, Fen joined Geralt and Jaskier for breakfast, though the bard was already on stage preparing which set to use for the morning's performance. Too early for such a thing, Fen would say, had they had the energy to argue. Fen was halfway through downing their food when they noticed Geralt's eyes on them. They questioned him about it, and Geralt huffed out amused, with the younger one's lack of table manners having answered the question with a mouthful of food. The Witcher nodded towards something over Fen's head. Finding nothing, they faced the Witcher, who stared at them with a brow raised and an amused smirk on his lips. They're missing something. They patted their face to see if they had any crumbs that was causing the man's reaction. Before the man in question motioned to reach higher, they followed directions, squinting at the man, confused. They reached up to their forehead, their hairline, before reaching at... Their eyes widened when they realized what they were pointing at. Frankly, they forgot it was there. Don't like... what? Don't like it? They pulled at their braid, trying to get a glance at it from the corner of their eyes before dropping it. Geralt shrugged. Just something I noticed. You don't usually braid your hair. Well? Fen heard the familiar strumming of the lute on stage, and turned to watch Jaskier set up. Just thought I'd try something new, I guess.